From the ashes of a life flows to the beautiful, strong and bold woman with declarations of continuous elevation. We are women who rise, women who rise. With God we succeed in spite of all challenges. Women who rise, women who rise. With our scars and all, we stand bold and tall. Fearfully and wonderfully made. We've learned to walk by faith, leaning and depending on Christ. He will always make a way. We are women who rise, women who rise. With God we succeed in spite of all challenges. Women who rise, we are women who rise. With our scars and all, we stand bold and tall. We continue to rise. Oh yes, we do. We are women who rise. Women who rise. We rise.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Happy Thursday, everybody. Happy Thursday. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Hope you all doing a wonderful today. I hope you all have had a wonderful week. My week has been blessed. My day has been great. I cannot complain. I'm so excited to be back here again. Another Thursday, another beautiful testimony we have lined up for you all tonight by another beautiful woman of God. So I hope you all are excited tonight. As you all know, our guest for tonight that will be giving her testimony is Miss Kimberly Boyd, a very, very sweet woman of God. I'm excited to have her. I'm excited to hear her testimony tonight. I hope you all are excited as well. While we wait for some more people to come on, I want you all to go ahead and hit the share button because I know this testimony is going to be nothing short of amazing. Every week without fail, God blesses us. He encourages us. He uplifts us through these phenomenal testimonies. So y'all go ahead and hit the share button. Go ahead and get somebody on your mind. Put their name in the comment section. Go ahead and tag them. Let them know that Women Who Rise, we are on tonight. We're on Facebook. We are on YouTube. So y'all go ahead and share. Tag somebody. Tell them, hey, Women Who Rise is on. Come on, hop on and share in this phenomenal testimony that is to come. Thank you all who are joining us so far, whether you are joining us by way of YouTube, whether you are joining us tonight by way of Facebook, however way you choose to join. Thank you for joining. Y'all know I appreciate every single one of you who even take out the time out of your busy schedules to come and sit and watch Women Who Rise. I've said it so many times that nobody is obligated to come and watch Women Who Rise. There are a million and one other things that we could be doing. But for those of you who take out the time to stop and watch and support and share the flyers or share by word of mouth, I appreciate you so much and thank you. So yeah, y'all go ahead, hit the share button, tag somebody in the comment section, let them know Women Who Rise, we're on. And we have a beautiful, beautiful woman of God lined up to share her testimony with us tonight. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and bring our guest on screen because I know she's ready to give her testimony. There is our lovely guest for tonight, Miss Kimberly Boyd. Y'all go ahead and put your hands together real good in the comment section. Let's give Miss Kimberly a great big round of applause. Just to say, number one, Kimberly, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I'm honored to have you. I'm excited to have you. I look forward to hearing whatever testimony God has dropped in your spirit to share with us tonight. I'm excited to hear it. I want to ask you, how are you doing on this Thursday evening?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much, Tiara, for the invite. This is out of my wheelhouse, but I am appreciative of the opportunity to just be on and to be able to share things that God has done for me. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. I was sharing with Miss Kimberly earlier that I was a bit nervous when I reached out to her. I was like, oh, she gonna say, I just know she gonna say no. Cause I was telling her, Kimberly, you don't see her in front of the camera. Very, very rare. She may post pictures every now and then, but in front of the camera, you don't see her. So I'm excited to see her in front of a camera tonight. I'm
Oh,
excited to hear her testify. I'm excited to hear Kimberly talk tonight. So
oh,
hopefully you all are excited as well. And I think it's extra sweet when I have on those women who, are super behind the scenes. You don't see them, you don't hear them often. So, I just want to show that they have a testimony too. God has done things for them as well. He's come through for them. They have good testimonies to share too. So I'm grateful for those that are super shy. Thank y'all for giving me your yes. So I was
yeah.
telling you, I feel like God favors me because some of the women I reached out to, I've been so nervous because you don't hear them talk much, but they end up giving me a yes. So Kimberly gave me a yes, y'all, and I'm so excited about it tonight. I want to say thank you again to everybody who have joined, whether you've joined us on Facebook, whether you were joining by way of YouTube tonight. Thank you all so much. And Kimberly, is there anything you would like to say to greet our viewers before we get your testimony?
Well, hello, everyone. And I'm prayerful that something that I say tonight will help someone in whatever situation that they might be going through. I pray that they take something positive out of my testimony tonight.
Yes, ma'am. I have no doubt that it's going to be something that we could take from your testimony. That when we wake up tomorrow, we're going to remember something that Kimberly said that we can apply to our everyday life. So I thank God for it. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. And with that being said, if you are new to this channel tonight, we are Women Who Rise. I am your host, Tierra Randall. We are here every Thursday, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. I do have a different woman of God every week sharing their testimony of how God simply blessed them to rise. And y'all know I say every week without fail, our sole purpose is to let someone know that God is no respecter of persons, which simply means the same God that blessed us to rise, the same God that gave us a testimony, the same God that came through for me, the same God that came through for Miss Kimberly is the same God that can do it for you. The same God that loves me, same God that loves you. And that's why we're here every Thursday. We're shining a light on the goodness of God in hopes that it would encourage somebody else to trust God just a little bit more. So even if it's one person that we reach, then hey, mission accomplished. So, and as I forestated, our lovely guest for tonight is Miss Kimberly Boyd, and she's going to share with us her testimony of how God has blessed her to rise. So, Kimberly, I always start out to all of my guests with the first question of when you first hear those three words, women who rise. Of course, being a woman yourself in today's time, there are so many challenges that we face. But when you hear those three words, what are the first thoughts that come to your mind?
Well, when I hear those first three words, I thought about the definition of one of the definitions of rise, where it talks about moving from a low place, like you're relocating and you're stepping up out of a low place. And I think about there's so many tests and trials and situations that women go through on a daily basis, naturally and spiritually, that when I think of women who rise, I think about women who have taken the opportunity to trust God, to decide to, plant their feet, square their shoulders, and move forward into whatever it is that God has for them. No longer staying in that place where their situation may feel negative or look negative, and they don't look at that situation anymore, but they're looking forward to what God has for them. And that's really what I think about when I think of women who rise.
Yes, man. I love that how you said you no longer looking at the situation, but you're looking forward to what God has for you. And I think that's so important because the enemy will have us to be focused on that thing that we're going through, to where that's all we see is the trial that's staring us in the face day in and day out. But when you get to the point where you can shift your focus from that trial to what God is going to do after that trial, you have no choice but to rise. Once you shift your mindset and show the devil, I'm not focusing on what you're doing no more. I'm looking to the hills from which coming my help. Amen. I love it. I want to ask you my next question, Kimberly. And I always say that this is my favorite question. This is where you get to testify. This is where we get to hear what God has done in Kimberly's life. But can you share with us a time where you came to your defining moment? And I always say that as women, we have many defining moments that we could testify about, many testimonies that we can share, because as women, we go through a lot. No slight to men, but this is Women Who Rise. So we go through a lot, Can you share with us maybe one testimony or two of, one of your defining moments where you came to a pivotal point in your life, you were faced with a question, Am I going to rise, or am I going to stay in the shape that I'm in? And not only that, how did you choose to rise?
So when I thought about this, the testimony that came to mind was a situation that happened early on in my career, where I was on a job that I enjoyed and wasn't looking for a job, but an opportunity came about, and I told God, I said, if this is for me, I only want it if it's for me, and if it's for me, I knew that He was going to work it out and He would make a way, and sure enough, I ended up with the position, and in this position, I dealt with a lot of contracts and a lot of clients and vendors outside of our agency. And I dealt with concerns and issues from vendors as well as clients. I had to do a lot of documentation. I had to keep up with everything, every contact that I made, every site visit that I did, because of the type of clientele that I worked with. And so that wasn't anything new to me, but I had a situation that came across my desk that was reported to me that I had to look into. And I had to do my regular due diligence and everything that I normally do, regarding trying to get to a resolution. It usually would take about 2 weeks to get to a resolution, honestly. However, this turned into an almost year-long investigation. And it went from an investigation regarding the concern that came across my desk to me being investigated. And I was faced with the challenge of meeting with administrators almost on a daily basis. I would have to provide documentation constantly. I'd have phone calls that I was answering, and, all these different questions. And it wasn't just my administration. It was the outside vendors. It was public entities that worked with us. And initially, in all honesty, I wasn't concerned. And I wasn't concerned because I knew that I had all of my information. I had all of my documentation. I'd done everything that I know to do on a normal basis. So there wasn't any concern for me initially. But when it turned into 2 months and then 3 months, where I was constantly being asked the same questions over and over again, and everything that I had done, they were not really accepting what was done and how I did it. And it just turned into something that began to weigh on me. And I got so weighted down that, I know the Bible says that we ought to always pray. Mm-hmm. And I was praying, I did pray, but I also was in a place where I was tired. Mm-hmm. And I had gotten so exhausted because I was being pulled in so many different directions, and so many different conversations that I was having to have over and over again, just repeating what I had done and, showing proof. And I would provide documentation. And then the next week they would ask for the same thing. I got to the place where I just didn't really know what to do. And, I remember praying and asking God, to help me, because I just didn't know what to do. And I didn't know where to go from where I was. And so this went on for almost a year. And I remember sitting at my desk one day, and I decided, you know what? I think I'm probably just going to find me another position. I don't think that I want to remain in this space, because what I found out, and I realized a little bit later, that when it's being weighed on you and you're being pulled at and weighted down naturally, it can seep over into your spiritual life.
That's right.
Where I found myself on autopilot with everything. My prayer life, to me, I felt like it was on autopilot. I was talking to God, but I wasn't giving him what I needed to give him. I wasn't taking my hands off of anything, because I kept feeling like I've given them everything that they need. So surely this is going to be fine. This is going to work out. I would go to church, and I'm not someone that tells like what's going on. And if you know me, then you may know something is wrong. But for the most part, I just stayed on autopilot. So I did everything I was required to do. I went to church, I prayed, but I wasn't where I needed to be in God, because I was in such a low place, because I was being pulled at so often, and this was lasting for such a long time. And it's different when you know you haven't done anything. You know, when you feel like I've done what I'm supposed to do, then you don't really understand. It's kind of hard to reconcile in your mind, why is this still going on? And I started to think it's a possibility that I'm going to lose my job behind this, and I don't really know why. And so I remember sitting in my office and, like I said, I was thinking, I just don't know if I want to do this any longer. I really don't know if I want to continue on this path. So I contemplated possibly quitting just in that moment at my desk. And while I sat there with those thoughts, God spoke to me and said, no, you won't. You're not going to quit. And in that moment, he reminded me, when you first came to this company, you came to this company as a temp. The day that position was ending, they offered you a full-time position.
Wow.
He reminded me, you worked in a position for possibly 2 years. And then a supervisor from a totally different department came to me and said, we're creating a position we want you in. And I was so condemned, and my heart was so hurt, because I realized in that moment, you didn't trust God. You're not talking to God. You completely forgot where your help came from. And it wasn't as if I didn't know these things, because we know the word.
Right,
and
right.
We know where our help comes from. We know to trust God. We know not to lean to our own understanding. We know all of those things. But I felt like I had spiritual blinders on. I felt like I could not even grasp and hold on to the scriptures of strength that I needed to hold on. And so when God started dealing with me that day in the office, my heart was broken. And all I could do was just tell God I was sorry. But at the same time, God just rehearsing his resume for me, of what he's done for me, changed everything in that moment for me, where I wasn't concerned anymore about how often they called me upstairs. I wasn't concerned anymore with how much documentation I needed to provide, or how much I had to try to explain what I did and why I did what I did and show them I followed protocol. I wasn't concerned with any of that. It allowed me to realize, you talked to God, you asked him to help you, to fix it, but you didn't ask for guidance. And so I started to ask God, you direct my path. Give me what to say, how to say it, what I need to provide. Help me to be prepared every single time they call for me to come into this office. And I saw God slowly change things for me, not just naturally. He changed things for me spiritually, because my prayer became intentional. And I started waiting in expectation. I wasn't waiting, wanting it to be done and wanting it to be over. I was waiting in expectation, because I knew he was going to bring me out.
Yes.
I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I knew that this wasn't going to go on forever. I knew that I had done what I was supposed to do, and God was not going to let his child be made ashamed. I knew this. And so I waited with expectation, and I started focusing on other things. There were other situations that were going on around me. I started praying for those situations. I just said, I'm taking my hands off of this, Lord. You're going to do it. You're going to fix it. So because I know you're going to fix it, let me pray for something else. Let me talk to you about other things. Let me thank you in the midst of this. God came in, and it did not happen right away. I still had to sit in that for a little while. But he came in, and the same people that were questioning me and asking for all this extra information and just taking me through the ringer as if, we're about to get rid of you, called me to the office one day and said to me, we appreciate your professionalism. We appreciate every answered question that you gave us, every documentation that you provided, every binder of information that you would scan and send to us. We appreciate that, because the way you handled this situation allow this to now be closed in a positive light. There was no negativity, there was no write-up, there were no findings. Everything worked out exactly what it was the way it was supposed to work out. And I was very appreciative of that, of course. And God came in, Tiara, and from that, what I didn't know was he was preparing me for everything he had moving forward for me as far as my career was concerned, and spiritually so, because it changed the way I talk to God. It changed my expectations of God. You know, it made me a person where every aspect of my life revolves around him. And he blessed me naturally where I was given all types of special projects. I was given promotions. I was put in rooms with people that I never expected to be in rooms with. I made decisions about things that I never thought that I would make decisions about with certain people in these public entities. And he just blessed me over and over and over again, just in that place. And I I couldn't be more appreciative. But what I learned was far greater than the blessing that he gave me as far as my career was concerned.
Wow. All I can say is wow. I mean, and while you were testifying, I couldn't help but think that the way you handle a situation naturally has a lot to do with how God comes through for you, with how he brings you out, even your timeline of deliverance, how you handle the situation and how you go through it has a
Yes.
lot to do with how God brings you out, you know. And
Yes.
sometimes while you were, and I thank God for your testimony because I'm dealing with a similar situation right now. So God knows he's an on-time God. So I thank God for your testimony. This is confirmation for me. So I thank God for it. And while you were talking, I was thinking, you know, sometimes God places us in situations just to see if you're going to be patient,
That's right.
to see if
Yes.
you're going to trust him, if you're going to pray to
Mhm.
him, like you said, pray
Mhm.
intentionally, pray
Mhm.
with expectation, not knowing how or when, but when you know God, you know he's going to come through. So
Yes.
I even thank God for those trials that come when, you know, God, he just want to see how are you going to handle? Are you going to use the integrity that I know I've already placed inside of you?
Right.
Or are you going to crumble and succumb to the pressure?
Mhm.
So I thank God for that. And I could imagine, Kimberly, that's not an easy situation to deal with, especially when you said the investigation turned to being now the spotlight is on you,
Mhm.
especially for children of God. You know, we're taught to be blameless.
Yes.
We
Yes.
don't, you know, we don't want our witness to be compromised. And
Absolutely.
that's something
Mhm.
that could have possibly compromised your witness. You know, people looking at, oh,
Mhm.
that's a child of God and she's on investigation. I ain't going to
Mhm.
her church. I ain't serving
Mhm.
the God that she serves.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
that
Yeah.
could be, you know, that could be kind of alarming. But when you know God,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
Bible says he won't let us be ashamed.
He will not. He
So
will.
I love it and I thank God for that. I want to ask you this question, Kimberly. Was there, like, you know, I know you alluded to you being a very, you know, quiet person. You don't really share much when anything is wrong with you. But was there anybody in your life that you could confide in or talk to, or anybody that was there to encourage you through this? Because I know it was a hard process, but anybody that can encourage you through the hard process?
Yeah, well, definitely. Let me start with my mom. And even with my mom, she knew some of it. She just didn't know how it was affecting me, how difficult it had become for me. And I don't think she really knew how low I was, but it didn't matter because my mom prays regardless. So
Mhm.
all she needed to know was you're fighting something, you got something going on, we're gonna pray and God is gonna move. And so my mother, who has always been my champion, always been in my corner, she has always prayed. If you look like it's something wrong, she's gonna pray for you. If she feels in her spirit that something's wrong, she's gonna pray, and she doesn't have to know what it is. And so, of course, she knew, and some family members knew, you know, because I just didn't want to talk about it a lot because it just, you know, was so much. I just didn't want to have the conversations over and over again about it. So some people knew, and I'm very thankful for the people who did know, who would just pray for me, you know, constantly. They didn't get tired. They prayed for me. They sent me encouraging words. They would tell me, I have a person that actually works in the building where I work. Um, and every time she would see me, she would tell me, "Don't forget what he's already done. Don't
Mm.
forget what he's done." And I have a small circle that just will rally around me and pray. And they kept me lifted up. And they didn't ask a lot of questions. They weren't trying to figure out what was going on. They just prayed. And I'm appreciative of that because that makes a world of difference. Because sometimes when we're so tired and we're so worn down and we don't know how to pray for ourselves, even those times when you don't know what to say, you have that backup of other people who love you, that are praying for you and that are holding you up. And that truly helped me through this process.
I love how you said you would have there was somebody that would remind you every time they saw you, don't forget what God has already done. I
Mhm,
mean, and that's powerful all by itself because we can get to going through trials and
mhm,
life gets to life, and as people
mhm,
say, life
mhm.
starts happening, and
Right.
sometimes it could be easy for us to forget that He's already come through before. This trial
Mhm.
right now is no exception.
That's right.
The same
That's
God that brought you out of the last thing, he's the same
right.
God that's going to bring you out of this trial as well.
Mhm,
And also, Kimberly, I wanted to go back. You also said something else that I thought was very, very important to point out. You said you were so weighed down naturally to the point where it started to spill over spiritually, and it
yes.
started to affect you spiritually. You got to the point where you were just going through the motion. So
Mhm,
I thought that was very important to point out because number one, it couldn't be further from the truth, and sometimes it happens without
mhm.
us even really
No,
noticing
yes,
that it's
that's right.
happening until one day we sit back and it's like, oh,
Mhm,
like I'm kind of, a little bit removed from God
mhm.
spiritually. And you look back and it's all because, and I remember some years ago, my pastor preaching, and he began to say one time that is one of the tactics that the enemy will use. He'll
Yes.
fight you and he'll weigh you down so much in the natural to
Yes.
the point where when it comes to the spiritual things, you're so weighed down to where you don't feel like praying. You're too tired to pray.
Mhm.
You're dragging coming into the house of God. When you get there, you're so tired, you barely can give God praise. He say that's
Mhm.
an attack of the enemy. He's using that natural thing in order with the attempt to stop you spiritually.
Right.
So I thought it was very important, to expose the devil right there real quick,
Yeah. Yeah.
point out that that's nothing but an attack of
It's
the enemy.
nothing but an attack of the enemy. That's all it is. It's just a distraction. It
That's
the
it.
whole thing was just a distraction. That's what it turned into because you can't when you can't see where you need to go, when you can't figure out that if I just get on my face, if I can just get on my face and forget about the depth of what I'm feeling and let God move, you can come out of it. But it's getting to that place where you can lay on your face and truly take your hands off of it and give it to God. I One of my favorite sayings is take your hand off of it and let God have it because we can't do anything with it.
That's
I
right.
the whole first part of my testimony, I think about everything that I was talking about was what I was doing. I was providing the information. I was answering the phone calls. I was giving the documentation. I wasn't allowing God space to do anything because I thought that I had it under control until I
Mhm.
realized I didn't.
Wow. And you know what? I applaud you for even being mature enough to admit that. A lot of people can't admit that. At one point it was all them. I thought I had it under control.
Mhm,
Because if we'll be honest, sometimes we're
mhm,
like that. We think,
mhm,
oh, this trial, okay, I'll handle this one myself.
mhm.
Sometimes some things are familiar, so we figure, or
Right.
sometimes in the beginning it may seem small, so we figure, oh, I got this one. I'm smart enough. I know
Mhm.
what route to take. I can do it on my own. But even in those situations where we feel like we got it could turn out to be very disastrous.
That's
If
right.
we feel like we got it, we got enough power to get it done. We got all the answers. And at
Mhm.
the end of the day, if you just give it to God, sometimes it'll make for a smoother process if you just give it to
Definitely.
God from the jump.
Yes.
So I wanted to applaud you for even admitting that because a lot of times that's hard for us to admit.
Mhm.
We don't want nobody to know that part. So
Mhm.
but I'm glad you were able to admit that. And also, Kim, I wanted to ask you this last question. Actually, I'm gonna throw in a question that I, didn't tell you in advance.
Okay.
A question that just came to my head. Now, I know through that process that could be sometimes you can feel like that's kind of like, your character may be taking a hit. and you could be, kind of, wondering how are people going to view me, anytime somebody comes on investigation, a lot of times in other people's heads, it raises red flags, or they're like, uh-oh, what did she do wrong? So
Right.
how did you process those thoughts and feelings?
Well, part of me, I try to just stay true to the understanding in my mind that that what you've done was correct. You've gone through the protocols. My supervisor at the time, she knew it just wasn't anything she could do about it because they wanted questions answered. And so we had to go through the process. And I had to, honestly, I had to try not to focus on that. I really had to try to focus on getting through the process. And once I got through the process, I felt like, okay, well, now they know that I did what I was supposed to do. And now they know that there weren't any wrongdoings and that I handled it per protocol. And I really just try not to focus on the negativity of that, because if you do, some people are going to think what they want to think. You can't change, what people think. And again, in this situation, I trusted God with it. I trusted God that he was going to make sure that my reputation stood sure with the people that I worked with, I had people that they knew what church I went to, and they know I'm saved and filled with the Holy Ghost, and they watch you and they're paying attention. And I even had some of them that would come and ask, like, what's going on? Why is this being such a big deal? You've been doing this. What's the problem? And I couldn't answer it because I didn't know, but I did know that God would work it out for me. And so once that happened, once everything smoothed over and everything was closed and everything was positive, a lot of people just said the same thing. You really handled that with grace, because how I felt on the inside was not how I was acting on the outside. On the inside was totally different from the outside, because I knew that I still had to remain professional, and I still had a witness. I still had people looking at me and waiting to see how I was going to handle the situation.
I love it. I just think that is so important, the way you handled yourself, with in the back of your head, you kept in mind that you don't want to destroy your witness. And I'm sure the enemy wanted you to act out of character and, really let how you felt on the inside show up on the outside, but I think even in those toughest of situations, those trials where we're being tested, when we can show God and even show other people that it is possible to maintain your integrity, to maintain your character, even through the hardest of situations and trials, and not give the devil the satisfaction of seeing you go to pieces. So I love that. I want to ask you this last question, Kimberly, tonight. And I love this question as well, because this is where you get to encourage us just a little bit more with your testimony. But what would you say? How would you encourage that individual tonight, that woman who may be in the same place, even if it's not work related, but they're in a situation to where their character is being tested, their faith is being tried, and they're going through the process, and they just not knowing when God is going to come through and deliver them, regardless of what it is. But how would you encourage them to rise tonight?
Well, I would start with the saying that I like, to take your hands off of it. But I think the other part of it is that you have to know your God. You have to know and trust that he wants the best for you, and that there are situations that are going to rise all the time that we don't control and we can't control. But if you truly give it to God, and if you pray intentionally, if you have a purpose in your prayer, watch God work it out. Allow him to be God in the situation. Just allow him to do what he does you which is be God. And if it's not always easy, and sometimes it can be drawn out. Sometimes you don't get over the situation quickly. But if we're just steadfast in knowing who God is and truly trusting the process, I think, I ask God, the journeys that I'm going through, if he would just give me the grace and the patience to be able to go through that journey and go through it correctly, where when I come out on the other end, I won't have to possibly go through that journey again or that trial again. But just making sure that I've put him first, that I've incorporated him in every area of my life, not thinking that I can do it and that I can fix it, but allowing him to be God. If you truly just let him be God and give it over to him, he will deliver. That's what he is. He'll deliver.
I love it. And I think that's a very good thing to leave with our viewers tonight, is simply let God be God. It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. And like Kimberly said, just take your hands off of it. And I know a lot of times that's a hard thing to do, especially for sometimes women, because we're used to being very hands-on and, you know, with our families, women with their kids, and just we're used to being hands-on. I'm one that likes to know things are in order and, you know, just all moving parts are working properly. I don't like not knowing. So I think that's, you know, sometimes easier said than done, but that does not mean that it cannot be done.
Right.
And I thank God for you. I thank God for him, you know, leading you to give this particular testimony. Because like I said, I'm in a similar situation right now. So when I say I thank God for your testimony tonight, I know you had to be obedient to God, because I didn't tell you anything of what I was going through. So
No.
I'm grateful for that. I'm
I thank God. I thank God that I gave this testimony, because every time I was trying to decide which testimony to give, it always came back to this. And, you know, I was praying, God, I hope that somebody gets something out of this, because it's not a testimony necessarily of healing or, you know, but it's this testimony dealt with so many different things for me internally. So I know that God is going to come and work at everything out for you in your favor. I know he's going to take care of whatever needs to be taken care of.
Yes.
This testimony was for you then tonight. And I thank God for that.
Listen, I'm excited. I am. I mean, I'm encouraged, because just the fact that God thought enough about me. And I know he's thinking about the viewers. I know he's thinking about y'all out there too on Facebook and YouTube, or whoever's going to come back and watch. But I take this personal tonight. So I thank God for it. I know I'm not the only person that's, you know, going to be blessed by your testimony. I know I'm not the only person who's going to be able to take your testimony tonight and apply it to a situation that, you know, that I'm going through, or maybe even somebody that may come back and watch this testimony at a later time. Somebody may watch this testimony a month from now. Somebody may watch it a year from now and say, oh, I'm in that same place, or I'm dealing with that. And they can take the things that you have said tonight. You said, pray intentional, pray with intent, pray intentionally, wait with expectation. You told us to take our eyes off of the situation and refocus it on God bringing us out and how he's going to bless us, how he's going to come through. So you gave us a lot of nuggets tonight that we can take and apply to our everyday life. And this is regardless of the situation. This can apply to somebody who's dealing with sickness, somebody who's believing God, you know, for a loved one to be saved. Whatever the situation is, we can take the things that you have told us tonight and apply it to our situation. So again, I thank God for it. I'm excited. I mean, I'm encouraged to keep praying and, you know, put it in the hands of God, take my hands off of it and just let God be God. And I know that, you know, we'll all be better off for it. So let me calm down. Amen. I thank God. God, he's a good God, you know.
He's good. He's a good God. He knows what we need.
And I'm so grateful for it. Amen. I love it. I have enjoyed your test, and I knew it was going to be good. I knew it was going to be good. And again, thank you for sharing the testimony that God has laid on your heart to give. And that's one thing to all of the women that I've had on the podcast. I asked that they would just be led of God, pray and ask God, what testimony does he want me to give? Because at the end of the day, I don't know what people need to hear. Kimberly doesn't know what testimonies people need to hear. We don't know what people are going through. But when you obey God and follow his leading, when he tells you to give a certain testimony, it's for a reason. He knows that somebody is going to be listening or watching, or somebody's going to come and watch a week from now that's going to need that particular testimony at that stage of their life. So thank you for your obedience tonight, Miss Kimberly, and sharing the testimony. You have blessed little old me.
Oh,
amen.
Praise God.
And I thank God for it tonight. Viewers, I don't have to ask if y'all enjoyed Kimberly's testimony, but if you're familiar with Women Who Rise, you know I'm going to ask anyway. If you enjoyed Miss Kimberly Boyd's testimony tonight, y'all already know, let's give her a great big hand clap. Let's give her a great big round of applause tonight, just to say, Kimberly, thank you again for coming on, taking out the time to share your testimony with us tonight. Like I said, I am encouraged. I know the viewers are encouraged. Those that come back and watch later, they are going to be encouraged. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your testimony with us tonight. Yeah, I'm so encouraged. Let me calm down. Just the Bible declares, who is man that, you know, God is mindful of. So he's mindful of us tonight. He's mindful of little old me. So I'm encouraged and I'm grateful. Yes, y'all put your hands together for Miss Kimberly real good tonight. Thank you, Kimberly. And I want to say also, thank you for I already told you thank you for accepting the invitation, but thank you for being willing to step out of your comfort zone. I know this is a new thing for you, stepping in front of a podcast camera. So, but I want to say thank you. I really appreciate it to all of the women who are able to step out of their comfort zone and just, come into a new territory, because the testimonies are a blessing. Like, had you never gave this testimony, I wouldn't have been able to, hear it at this time in my life where I really needed it. So I want to say personally, thank you for that alone, Kimberly.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Again, thank you to all of the viewers, everybody who have joined, whether you're watching by way of Facebook, YouTube, whether you're going to come back and watch at a later time. Thank you all so much. Y'all, please be guilty of sharing this testimony with somebody. You can share it from Facebook. You can share it from YouTube. If you want to personally text it to somebody, you can do that as well. But whatever you do, be guilty of sharing this testimony tonight. With that being said, we are out of time. I am going to go ahead and let you all go for tonight. But y'all know we will be back next week. Same time, same place, 8:00 p.m. Central Standard Time. I have another beautiful woman of God lined up to share her testimony with us. And y'all, I'm even more excited tonight about. I know we've had some good testimonies, but I sound country, good testimonies, but I know we got some even greater ones that are coming. So I hope y'all are excited. I have high expectation. God is a good God. So y'all prepare for that. I'll let you all know on Monday who our guest for next week is going to be. But until then, y'all, take your hands off of it, like Miss Kimberly said, and just let God be God. Sure as He is God, He will come through for you. He will not let you be ashamed. Amen. If you don't remember anything else that Kimberly said, Kimberly told us, take your hands off of it and let God be God. I love you all. You all have a wonderful night. We'll see you all on next week, and good night for tonight.
We are women who rise, women who rise. With God we succeed, in spite of all challenges. Women who rise, we are women who rise. With our scars and all, we stand bold and tall. We continue to rise. Oh yes, we do. We are women who rise. Women who rise.